Imagine standing alone in the New Mexico desert, squinting against the morning sun. The year is 1985, and there, silhouetted against an endless sky, 4 riders appear on the horizon. This is how Lawrence Kasdan introduced audiences to Silverado, a film that would challenge everything we thought we knew about westerns in the 1980s. In a decade dominated by urban action heroes like Schwarzenegger and Stallone, Silverado dared to dust off the cowboy hat and spurs. The western genre had been declared dead, relegated to late-night TV reruns and dollar theater double features. But Kasdan, fresh off writing Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Empire Strikes Back, saw something different, an opportunity to rekindle the American West's mythic flame for a new generation. With a budget of $23 million, modest even by 1985 standards, Kasdan assembled an ensemble cast that mixed established stars with rising talent. The film would eventually earn $32 million at the box office, numbers that told only part of the story. Because what Silverado really accomplished was something far more significant. It proved that the Western wasn't dead, it just needed someone to reimagine it for modern audiences. In many ways, Silverado was a bridge between eras. It kept one foot firmly planted in the classic Western traditions of John Ford and Howard Hawks, sweeping vistas, moral clarity, and the mythic power of the frontier. But its other foot stepped boldly into contemporary filmmaking, with dynamic camera work, complex character relationships, and a willingness to address issues of race and justice that classic Westerns often ignored.
Followed by a first-class hanging.
I had enough of what ain't right.
The story of Silverado's creation is really the story of American cinema at a crossroads, as audiences increasingly demanded complex narratives and morally ambiguous characters. The traditional Western seemed out of step with the times. But what if those apparent limitations were actually opportunities? What if a Western could speak to universal themes while acknowledging the complexities of the modern world? This wasn't just another cowboy movie. This was an attempt to prove that the Western, America's original cinematic art form, still had something vital to say about justice, community, and the price of freedom. And perhaps most importantly, it aimed to show that these stories could still captivate audiences who had grown up far removed from the frontier mythology that gave birth to the genre. As we dive deeper into Silverado's enduring impact on American cinema, we'll explore how this ambitious film managed to both honor and reinvent the Western, creating a template that filmmakers continue to draw from today. Because sometimes, to move forward, you need to take a long, hard look at where you've been, and few films have managed that delicate balance quite like Silverado. For analysis, the technical mastery behind Silverado begins with Lawrence Kasdan's deliberate cinematographic choices. Working with director of photography John Bailey, Kasdan shot the film in Panavision anamorphic widescreen, capturing New Mexico's sprawling landscapes with a grandeur that rivals John Ford's Monument Valley. The decision to film primarily in natural light during magic hour created a luminous quality that set Silverado apart from the harsh, bleached look of 1970s westerns. What truly distinguished Silverado's visual approach was its innovative blend of practical effects and emerging 1980s techniques. The film's action sequences, particularly the opening cabin shootout, combined traditional stunt work with precisely timed pyrotechnics. Rather than rely on the quick-cut style becoming popular in action films, Kasdan opted for wider, sustained shots that showcased both the environment and the choreography of violence. Bruce Broughton's orchestral score deserves special recognition for its contribution to the film's unique identity. Breaking from the minimalist trends of the era, Broughton created a sweeping, full-bodied soundtrack that echoed the classical Western scores of Elmer Bernstein. While incorporating modern orchestral techniques, the main theme, with its triumphant horns and driving strings, became an instant classic that influenced Western scores for decades to come. The production design team, led by Ida Random, undertook the massive task of building Silverado from the ground up. Unlike many Western sets that only constructed facades, this was a fully realized town with interiors and working buildings. The attention to period detail extended beyond architecture to include historically accurate weaponry and costume design that subtly incorporated 1980s influences while maintaining period authenticity. color plays a crucial role in Silverado's visual storytelling. Instead of the traditional sepia tones and earth colors associated with westerns, Kasdan and his team embraced a richer palette. Deep blues in night scenes, vibrant greens in the wilderness sequences, and the warm golden hues of the town itself created a world that felt both historical and vitally alive. This approach would influence later westerns like Tombstone and Open Range, which similarly moved away from monochromatic visual schemes. The film's editing rhythm, overseen by Carol Littleton, deserves particular attention. While many 1980s films were embracing a faster cutting style, Silverado maintained a measured pace that allowed scenes to breathe while still delivering kinetic action sequences. This balance between contemplation and excitement helped establish a template for modern westerns that neither dragged nor felt artificially accelerated. Perhaps most technically impressive was the film's approach to sound design. The audio team created distinct acoustic environments for each location, from the hollow echo of empty buildings to the subtle ambiance of wind through canyon walls. Gunshots were recorded with period-accurate weapons at various distances, creating a sonic landscape that enhanced the film's authenticity while meeting modern audiovisual standards. And story impact. At the heart of Silverado's success lies its exceptional ensemble cast, each bringing distinct energy to their roles. Kevin Kline's portrayal of Padden stands as the film's moral compass, a reformed gunslinger trying to walk a righteous path. Kline brought a thoughtful, almost philosophical quality to the role that was rare in Western heroes. His subtle performance, particularly in scenes wrestling with loyalty versus justice, added layers of complexity traditionally absent from the genre. Scott Glenn's Emmett represents the more traditional Western hero, but with crucial modern touches. Glenn infused the character with a world weariness that spoke to 1980s audiences' skepticism of simple good versus evil narratives. His relationship with his younger brother Jake, Kevin Costner, provided the film with its emotional anchor, while his scenes confronting past trauma offered deeper psychological dimensions than classic westerns typically explored. Danny Glover's portrayal of Mal deserves special recognition for breaking racial barriers in the genre. Unlike many Western films that relegated black characters to peripheral roles, Mal stands as a fully realized hero with his own compelling storyline. Glover's commanding presence and nuanced performance helped pave the way for more diverse representation in Western films, challenging long-standing genre conventions. The film's most memorable scenes showcase how effectively these performances intertwine. The bar fight introduction sequence, where each character's distinct fighting style reveals their personality, remains a masterclass in character development through action. The opening cabin shootout establishes the film's tone while demonstrating each actor's ability to convey character through movement and reaction rather than dialogue. Jeff Goldblum's brief but memorable appearance as the gambler Slick perfectly exemplifies the film's casting brilliance. Though his screen time is limited, Goldblum's characteristic intensity and odd charisma make every moment count, creating a character that feels fully realized despite minimal exposition. Linda Hunt's turn as Stella adds another layer of complexity to the ensemble. Her diminutive stature, contrasted with her character's commanding presence, challenges Western stereotypes while providing some of the film's most quotable dialogue. The casting choice itself demonstrated Kasdan's commitment to breaking genre conventions. The chemistry between these performers elevates every scene. Whether in quiet character moments or during the climactic town showdown, the cast maintains a natural rapport that makes their characters' loyalty to each other feel earned, rather than artificially imposed by the plot. The final confrontation works not just as an action sequence, but as the culmination of relationships and tensions established throughout the film. Behind the scenes, Kasdan faced initial skepticism about casting relative newcomers alongside established actors. Kevin Costner, in particular, was considered a risky choice at the time. However, his energetic performance as Jake would help launch him to stardom and establish him as a future Western icon, proving Kasdan's instincts correct. Reception and evolution. Upon its release in July 1985, Silverado met with decidedly mixed reviews from critics. Many compared it unfavorably to Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider, released just weeks earlier, suggesting that Kasdan's more optimistic take on the genre felt out of step with the grittier Western aesthetic audiences had come to expect. effect. The New York Times praised its technical merits, but questioned whether its loving homage to classic westerns served any purpose beyond nostalgia. Yet, as the years passed, critical perception began to shift. What initially appeared as simple genre revival revealed itself as something more nuanced. Critics began noting how the film's seemingly straightforward narrative contained subtle commentary on corruption, racial dynamics, and the nature of justice, themes that would become increasingly relevant in American discourse. The film underwent several interesting transformations in its various releases. The extended television cut included several character-building scenes that didn't make the theatrical release, particularly expanding Linda Hunt's role as Stella and providing more context for the town's political dynamics. These additional scenes, while not drastically altering the plot, added deeper layers to the film's exploration of frontier justice and community bonds. Among the fascinating details often overlooked in initial viewings is the film's careful attention to historical accuracy in unexpected areas. The depiction of frontier law enforcement as a complex mix of legitimate authority and corrupt power dynamics was drawn from actual historical records. The character of Malachi Johnson, played by Danny Glover, was partially inspired by real black settlers and lawmen whose stories had been largely erased from traditional Western narratives. The film's treatment of violence also evolved in viewers' understanding. What initially appeared as typical Western action sequences revealed themselves as carefully constructed commentaries on the cycle of violence and revenge. The famous opening cabin sequence, for instance, plays differently once viewers understand the full context of Emmett's backstory and the themes of justice versus revenge that permeate the film. Perhaps most significantly, time has highlighted how Silverado's ensemble approach to storytelling influenced the genre. While initial reviews focused on comparing it to traditional Western narratives, later analysis recognized how it helped establish a template for modern ensemble westerns, where the interaction between multiple protagonists drives the story rather than the journey of a single hero. The film's attention to female characters, though limited by modern standards, also deserves reassessment. The roles of Emma, Kate, and Stella, while supporting, offered more agency and complexity than typical Western female characters of the era. This aspect of the film has gained greater appreciation as discussions of representation in Western films have evolved. Technical elements that seemed merely competent in 1985 have aged remarkably well. The practical effects, location shooting, and measured editing pace feel refreshingly authentic in an era of CGI-heavy action sequences. Film scholars have particularly noted how the movie's visual style bridges classical Western cinematography with modern technical capabilities without sacrificing the genre's essential qualities.
Can't you see this horse loves me?
Making a big mistake.
That's what I told him.
Legacy and modern relevance. Silverado's influence ripples through modern Western filmmaking in ways both obvious and subtle. When Kevin Costner directed Dances with Wolves 5 years later, he drew directly from Kasdan's playbook of blending classic Western imagery with contemporary storytelling sensibilities. The film's approach to ensemble storytelling laid groundwork that would later be built upon by successful Westerns like Tombstone and 3:10 to Yuma's remake. In today's entertainment landscape, Silverado's DNA is particularly evident in television series like Justified and Yellowstone. These shows echo its ability to use Western frameworks to explore modern themes of justice, community, and power. The film's handling of corrupt institutions and the tension between law and justice feels particularly relevant in current discussions about systemic power structures and institutional reform. The technical achievements of Silverado continue to influence filmmakers. Modern Westerns like The Power of the Dog and News of the World draw from its playbook of using natural light and wide shots to create both intimacy and scope. The film's approach to action sequences, favoring clarity and geography over rapid cutting, has become increasingly appreciated in an era where many action films opt for chaos over coherence. Perhaps most significantly, Silverado's diverse casting choices appear prescient today. Its treatment of Danny Glover's character as a fully realized hero rather than a token minority character set a standard that the industry is still working to consistently meet. The film demonstrated how Western stories could acknowledge historical diversity without feeling forced or anachronistic. Contemporary filmmakers continue to reference Silverado's ability to balance reverence for genre traditions with necessary evolution. Shows like The Mandalorian draw from its its template of mixing Western storytelling elements with other genres. The film's influence can even be seen in video games, where titles like Red Dead Redemption 2 echo its blend of character-driven narrative and Western action. Looking at Silverado today reveals how it anticipated many current conversations about representation, justice, and American mythology. Its themes of community resistance against corporate power feel particularly relevant in our current political climate. The way it handles questions of who gets to enforce justice and how resonates with ongoing debates about law enforcement and community protection. The film's optimistic tone, once criticized as naive, now feels like a refreshing alternative to the relentless grimness of many modern westerns. It suggests that stories of justice and community can be told without sacrificing complexity or depth. In an era where cultural cynicism often dominates storytelling, Silverado's belief in the possibility of justice and positive change offers a valuable counterpoint. For modern audiences discovering it today, Silverado serves as both a bridge to classic westerns and a reminder that the genre's core themes remain relevant. It shows how Western storytelling can evolve without losing its essential character, and how old forms can speak to new concerns. In this way, it stands not just as a successful film, but as a template for how genres can grow and adapt while honoring their roots. And that's why Silverado matters more than ever. In a time when we're re-examining our cultural narratives and how we tell them, it offers a masterclass in respectful reinvention. It reminds us that the best stories, like the best traditions, don't just survive by staying the same. They thrive by growing, adapting, and finding new ways to speak to each generation. Here are some fascinating hidden details about Silverado that many viewers might have missed. The opening sequence where Emmett, Scott Glenn, survives the ambush in the cabin was actually filmed last in production. Glenn had severely injured his hand during an earlier stunt, and the bandages his character wears weren't just for show. They were covering real injuries. Jeff Goldblum's character Slick was originally written with a much larger role, including a dramatic death scene. However, scheduling conflicts with other projects forced the role to be reduced. The scene where he vanishes from the story was actually a hasty rewrite done during production. The town of Silverado itself was built as a complete set near Santa Fe, New Mexico, with fully functional buildings. After filming wrapped, much of the set was preserved and used in other Western productions throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s, including Young Guns. There's a subtle running joke throughout the film involving John Cleese's character's accent. As an English sheriff in the American West, his character explains his presence differently to different people, with each explanation becoming more outlandish than the last. Linda Hunt's character Stella was originally written for a male actor. When Hunt read for the part, Kasdan was so impressed that he rewrote the role without changing a single line of dialogue, proving that the character's authority came from presence rather than physical stature. Kevin Costner performed all his own horseback riding stunts, including the scene where he rides standing up on the saddle. This impressed Kasdan so much that he expanded Jake's riding scenes in the film, adding several showcases for Costner's horsemanship. The distinctive leather jacket worn by Kevin Kline's character, Peyton, became the subject of multiple disputes during production. The wardrobe department created 7 identical versions, but by the end of filming, 6 had been stolen from the set, presumably by crew members who recognized its unique design. If you enjoyed this analysis of how Silverado helped reshape the Western genre, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the films that changed cinema. Leave a comment letting me know which classic film you'd like me to explore next.